racing everywhere. Oh, who else? McDonald, Tim and Wayne.
He's kicked it.
McDonald, Tim and Wayne.
What time is it?
10.
Welcome back to the Lunchtime Catch-Up Podcast, episode number 137. The Lunchtime Catch-Up Podcast is two blokes that have known each other forever, who catch up most days in the Melbourne CBD for lunch. Who am I kidding? We haven't done that in ages, to talk everything Essendon Footy Club. My name is Grant, and with me is Scott.
Hello, everyone. Good to be back. 2 wins in a row, so it's always nice to do a show after a win. One thing I will say is I probably watched, obviously because of lockdown, I probably watched about 5 or 6 games this week. And I can confidently say that all those games were absolute rubbish.
Super mega fugly.
So, I know there's the narrative of, I've been seeing it like Essendon, they're going to play better than that if they're going to play finals. But I must admit, I watched nearly every team this weekend, and whether what's happening nationally and the changes and everything like that, when they say the game's 95% above the shoulders, I think there's a whole lot of players out there that are just a little bit on different.
I reckon they're over it.
Yeah, I think they're over it. And I thought the standard of football dropped considerably this weekend. And obviously Essendon came out flat. And I thought, if I'm being very honest, that last half an hour when the leader stood up, and you will talk about it later on with the Parish, Merritt and Wright and Stringer, and I'll include Heppel with that as well. I thought, we had a really pleasing response to a game. We didn't come out at all, with much energy and just mentally just making mistakes that we haven't, I think, for most of the year, and even with energy for most of the year. And like Truck said in the presser, he said, and which I really like, in the main break, some of the leaders put their hand up and said, no, we're not playing up to the standard we deserve. And they corrected that, and then they got on a roll and they beat North Melbourne by 3 goals. So considering everything that's happened on the weekend and what I saw nearly all the teams dish up, I've got to say, for Essendon to win, come out on top in a home, in what's meant to be a marvel game up in Queensland, in a ground that we haven't won the last 5 games at, I'm actually pretty happy, to be honest. We're in the 8, and I think after round 18, and you got to remember the first 2 rounds, we had the tragic loss to Hawthorn. Then we went to Port Adelaide and actually got hammered.
Pumped. Yep.
And then Caldwell, Shield and Draper all went down. Long-term injuries. We've got to remember that. And there was Norton too, and it wasn't looking pretty because some of our stars have gone down, some of our hopeful, Draper being our future ruckman. All 10-week at least plus injuries. I thought, oh no. But for us to be in the 8 after round 18 with the amount of interstate and interruption games this team has had to play.
And being the second youngest team in the AFL.
Yeah, exactly. So I think this year actually has been incredible, and I am, I'm not trying to be over the top. I know people go, but I'm sorry, this team has been fantastic this year, and how they've represented the club, how they've nearly every week shown up and had pride in their performance at some point. And I know not everything works. So you have quarters where we've had 7 goals kicked against us. That's a young team. That's a roller coaster. I get it.
AFL football, yep.
But, when, mid-year when we had to go to the Perth hub and everything like that, to win 6 of the last 9 games and steer this whole year around to where we're actually an opportunity to play finals football. To be honest, I take my hat off to all the players, the staff, and, small things that I notice culturally with this club when you're singing the song and you're singing this song with McGrath live from his hotel, and they're all looking at him and waving and smiling and the joy that they got from that and from the win. You had another Great recruiting coup in Sandurum, who looks like a really good future player at age 20.
Looks like a player.
It's been a fantastic year, and I know we didn't play up to our normal standard, but when the game had to be won, the leaders stood up and they won the game, and I couldn't be happier.
With these sort of, I mean, if I love the way I'm about to brush over the fact that we had to fly interstate again, right? Like we got to fly interstate again to play at another ground that we don't usually play at, and excuse me, at a moment's notice, the boys have just got to jump on a plane. But I guess if you put that to the side for one moment, these sort of games where we're playing a side that's not real special at the moment in North Melbourne, and it's a game where with Cunnington out, and was it Jed Anderson as well, Scott, that was out? He
was talked about as possibly coming in, but he didn't get up.
Okay, cool, right. So him being out as well. They're dramatically understaffed and they're not real special at the moment. So it's one of those games where, and the other thing with North is that they've beaten a few people recently. So they might be a little bit up and about, but they're still not a real special footy side. It's a danger game. It's a game that we really should win, and you should win comfortably and you move on. But as it showed when we went up there, sometimes you can play down to the level of your opponent. And that's what we did. For three and a half quarters, probably, we played down to their level and we were no good. And Waller wasn't getting hold of it and Smith wasn't getting hold of it. The back line that was just wide open and on the transition and stuff, and we were no good. But, and here comes the big BUT, like Scotty said, it is a sign of maturity in my humble experience that when you can be playing bad like that, someone senior, and it's generally the senior blokes that do it, in Jakey Stringer and Merritt and Parrish now. You got to put him in the senior list because he's that good now. Parrish, Merritt, Stringer, Ridley,
even the captain, yeah.
And don't forget the man, Heppel. They just must have just said, right, no, that's enough of that, and we're going to do what we need to do now to get over the line. Now, you could mount an argument that could have been effective as of bounce number one, but it wasn't. But it is a really good sign to show that we have the kind of ability to switch gears when it is genuinely required. Should we have left it that late? No way. But we've got a gear in the bag, so to speak, in the little hip kick that allows us to take another step and to beat the teams that we're supposed to beat in the North Melbournes of the world. So, look, it was a super fugly game of footy. The whole round was a super fugly game. I really agree with what you said, Scotty, and that I think it's not just affecting, like you could see Jake when he said, oh, man, I'm just enjoying playing with the boys, but it's just another occasion where I've got to leave the family and I've got to do all this. And I reckon it is it is now officially affecting the players and their ability to play, because that was a strange game of footy from us. Thank goodness.
Strange round. Yeah, it was a strange round of footy.
Totally strange round of footy. And you got to put it down to the fact that you get a phone call at 9 a.m. To get yourself ready, get your gear, and meet us at Tullamarine in 4 hours because you'll be on a plane in an hour after that. So, yeah, it was a strange win, but it was you can look at it negatively and say, oh, the boys better improve on that. Yep, definitely. Boys need to improve on that. I'll agree. But we did what we needed to do to win. Sides that aren't progressing or sides that are in trouble could have potentially lost that game when we really should have won it, but we didn't. So I think on the podcast tonight, we're taking a cautiously optimistic approach to that game.
Well, I mean, West Coast,
what we needed to.
Like the previous week, West Coast were up by a couple of goals with like 15 or so minutes to go. Like they're up by, and they didn't have the leaders to stand up, and North Melbourne ended up winning that game. So you got the same scenario again. North Melbourne came up strong from the start. They were full of confidence, and you could tell. They were in the first quarter, they were really going to take it up to us. They were hitting their targets. They were running. I mean, we were jogging a bit, but they were running through us pretty easily. But when the same scenario happened again, our leaders just said, "Nah, it's not happening. So
It's
I thought Parrish, Merritt, and Stringer just were unbelievable. And there's another guy I'm going to mention by the name of 2 Meter, which we'll mention in the other break. But he's a different category because he played well the whole game. I give him a lot of kudos from the first minute. He was probably the only player that was on song.
mate, covered ground, kicked goals, took marks, picked it up off the deck. The 7-seater split system heater, he did extremely well.
Yeah, so look, we'll go to a break and we'll start sort of going through some of the players and our thoughts. So see you after the break.
Welcome back to the Lunchtime Catch-Up podcast. Now then, Scotty, who took your eye in this game? It's a bit of a tough one. We know the real names like the Jakey kicking 4 and that sort of stuff. But is there anybody that sort of caught your eye that was sneaky good?
Yeah, it's a tough game to assess. Look, we'll get to the obvious stars, and we've obviously spoken a little bit about them. One guy just going a little bit under the radar, and I think he's in and out of the side this year, and he's not doing much wrong, is Guelphy. And I know that's an unusual first name to start with, but
yeah,
I think he has played his role pretty well every time he's come in. He's full of energy. I think he's had 17 or 18 disposals, kicked a really nice goal. But I think he's the kind of live wire that we kind of needed in that game there, where he's up and about, energetic. And so, look, I think he's had a better year than maybe what some may think. I think he probably deserves a little bit of assurance in game time with us having some injuries.
I reckon. But, I mean, the disappointing thing for Guelph is that I think he is a top-up guy for the Dons. They regard him as a Mr. Fix-It top-up guy. And if Shield, Caldwell, Langford were all ready and raring to go, Zach Reed, and I don't know that he gets a game, it's a bit sad. I'd have him as a required footballer at our club. I really would, because he's been the sub, for goodness sake. He's come in a quarter and turned an entire game and dominated. He's kicked goals forward. He's tackled down back. I'm not sure he's done anything wrong. Like he does, whenever he comes into the side, he does a job for you. And they're very valuable footballers to have.
I actually like sometimes when they drift him forward. And I think he's got a high-pressure game. I mean, sometimes I feel like he's doing more the Devon Smith things that I'm hoping from Devon Smith.
Than Devon Smith is doing, yes.
And I know Devon Smith does chase and tackle. I get all that. But no doubt he has far more potential to be more involved in the games than what he's giving us.
Do you know what Matt Guelphy does have a lot better than Devon Smith at the moment?
Team focus and self-control.
Not giving away 50-metre bloody penalties by punching people.
Yes.
I'm not sure if Dev suddenly has a larger, impression of himself than he once did for some reason, but I'm not sure why he believes that punching people behind the play and giving away 50s like he has recently.
And we had the ball. Like when he did it, we had the ball flowing down to the forward line. And that's the ones I go, gee, as a coach, you must be livid, because we had just multiple players running down the wing, heading towards our forward line. And he, behind the play, he swings an arm and just like, oh man.
I don't know, mate. I don't know if Dev all of a sudden got a bit of an ego out of somewhere for some reason, but he's currently not matching the ego that we're seeing out of Devon at the moment. Now, I love Devon because he's all go. Sometimes he chases and he's all effort and he's bloody good around goals. I'll give him that. But like the last few weeks, mate, I'm sorry, Dev, your ego's writing checks. Your performances aren't matching just at the moment. So I reckon Dev just needs to calm down a bit. Yeah. And just, if he's playing in the forward 50, how about you kick 3? Like let's kick 3 and silence a few people before we start swinging arms. If you're going to niggle somebody, I learned how to niggle somebody at South Croydon bloody juniors and get away with it. You don't walk around punching people with 15 umpires on a field and cameras everywhere.
No, well, it's that fine balance of playing on the edge, and having the self-control.
Punching people in the chest is not the edge.
No, exactly.
The edge is giving them a rib niggle when you're in the pack and you're just giving them a bit of an ankle tap or a bit of a something like that. Like that stuff, man. You learn playing against some dodgy team in the EDFL. You don't walk around punching people and think you're going to get away with it. So I must admit, I'd much prefer Dev when he's chasing and kicking goals just quietly.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I said, for me, Guelphy was the example of how you go about it. Terrific game. Look, I thought at like half time, I actually had Heppel almost best on ground.
Yeah, he's good down there this year. Like he's a serious footballer now.
Yeah, to even get on the scoreboard and kick a goal for us, and that was a really good, pretty courageous act, and he obviously got a 50 and score, but we needed a bit of leadership right at that moment too. And that's, I think he's had a terrific year as captain and player. So he's another one I want to shout out. Obviously he's got the thumb injury, so I guess 27 disposals and for that's a pretty good return game.
He was in a hospital 7 days before that or something.
Yeah, exactly. So look, there's a lot of players. There's almost 10 or 12 players. I'm probably not going to mention this game because they're just well and truly not in the game.
Well, like you said, we can, and you're right. We were sort of saying about this podcast tonight about it's a tricky one to sort of talk about because so many players played very differently to their capabilities and got very minimal possessions and were very minimally involved in the overall outcome of the game. It's basically the players you know of: Merritt, Parrish, Wright, Hooker, Heppel, and Jakey Stringer.
Yeah,
that's pretty much won us the game.
It was interesting, the coaches' votes having a tied best on ground between Stringer, Parrish, and Merritt, and that was the reality of what had happened. Parrish just, I thought the first half it was like, oh, he's doing okay, and then he just stepped up big time. 8 clearances, 9 score involvements. And just, got, and then Merritt absolutely went insane the second half. He's having
you love that extra gear.
I know people tell me, Parrish is going to win the Crichton. I swear Merritt is just right there with him neck and neck.
Yeah, I agree. Yep.
Because Merritt just keeps doing this every game. Like, it's very rare for him to get under 25 disposals. He's high pressure. He's one of the few guys that's hitting guys and, on the lead. He had a couple of nice passes to Hooksy. So Merritt, I had BOG myself. I actually had a bit of controversy. I actually had Peter Wright 2 votes and I had Stringer 1 vote. Now that leaves Parrish out, which is very harsh.
Dude, that's harsh.
But I probably understand Parrish maybe in the end should have got in there, but I must admit I'm giving Peter Wright 1 because it's almost like encouragement, but I thought he was one of the few players that played 4 quarters. Kicked it.
So if we talk about the 2 meter 7-seater split system heater Peter,
any other rhymes you want to go with?
No, I just have a talent for rhyme. Yes. Some of the time. Excellent. If anybody knows that reference.
Princess Bride reference. Oh, sorry. I gave it away.
Now, dude, we're just going to go with the fans. But anyway, 2 meter, 7-seater, the split system heater that is Peter Wright. 20 possessions, 75% accuracy, 3 goals won, and ran close to, if not damn it, the most distance of any Essendon footballer on the field.
14K or something.
Heps beat him by 0.2 of a kilometre. Now, I'll tell you what, the one thing I loved about Peter Wright, 3 goals won, mate. If he's marking them in and around 50, they look very pretty coming off the foot. He lays that dirty, great big 2 meter foot into the ball. It stays kicked. It looks very, very pretty. But the thing that I was impressed with him about was around the ground.
Yeah, he had 10 hit outs as well, by the way.
10 hit outs and around the ground. Like he's
done everything this game.
Yeah, picking balls up off the ground. And sure, he's not picking balls up the ground and bloody running across the field and kicking goals, but he gets the ball up off the ground. He gets it to the guy that he needs to, and he doesn't make mistakes. I tell you what, another perfect selection from the Big Red Fire Engine. I reckon Gold Coast must be looking at him going, great. Yeah, thanks.
Now you do it.
Now you do it. But I reckon this club and Ben Rutten and the coaching staff has brought it out of that guy.
Yeah.
Massively highly touted as a junior, 2 meters tall, can kick like that, can run like all day. And it's taken coming to Essendon to get it done. So I've got Peter Wright at 1.
Oh, it's not easy because it was.
And again, I'm with you. I've got to have Merritt in there because he was just dominant. He was utterly dominant. But I've almost got Parrish and Merritt at 3. Sorry, Parrish and Merritt equal 2. Jakey Stringer kicking 4 goals was the difference.
I mean, Stringer's won you the game, so he probably has every right to be 3 himself.
Absolutely. So 3 for Jake Stringer, equal 2 for Merritt and Parrish, and the 7-seater Massive Peter at number 1 for mine.
Yeah, and that's probably how it goes, and that's in some ways that's how the coaches' votes went. I mean, it was those 3, and then Peter Wright was just behind him on 2.
And 3 goals won, man. Geez, if he kicked 4 goals won, does he deserve?
Oh, if he kicked that last goal, yeah, because he had a shot in the last quarter, and that would have been 1 each quarter. If he kicked that, and
Jakey Stringer won us the game. He was incredibly good, but kicked the same amount as Jakey. Does he deserve to be up the chain a bit?
Yeah, because the funny part with Jakey, right, he's the match winner. But he dead set went quiet for 60 minutes of the game. Like, he just had, he was on 7 possessions from almost halfway through the first quarter to halfway through the third quarter. Like, nothing happened.
But geez, you got to love him, don't you?
But when the Hollywood lights went up and said, can we find a hero here?
Can somebody help a brother out? Jakey's just going, yes, baby, yes, you can. Let me in there. And the package just comes out. And he reminds me to a sort of a lesser extent that a mate of mine, Matt Collins, who'll be absolutely cacking himself that I just mentioned him on the podcast. He tells me that he's a massive tennis fan. And he tells me back in the day that Roger Federer had an extra gear. And you apply that to sort of the real serious champions, the Federers, the Jordans, those kind of guys. They've got an extra gear that everybody else doesn't have. And sometimes, I'm not putting Jake Stringer in the same breath as Roger Federer. I think that's probably a smidge distance between the two. But Jake Stringer does have a dusty, cometh the moment, cometh the man about him.
Yeah.
If you said, Jakey, we've got 30 seconds, I'm going to put you in the middle. I need you to get the ball. I need you to burst out of the middle and kick me a goal. Jake would be rubbing his hands together because he'll be going, absolutely, I'll do it. It's done. I'll get it done. So Jakey absolutely won the game for us. But geez, I tell you what, 2 meter Peter didn't get them all in one hit, but Jakey flicked a switch. And
I would go as far to say that the last 5 weeks, Jake Stringer is in the top 6 or 7 players in the AFL the last 6 weeks.
Mate,
because he's doing everything at the moment. He's doing mid, forward. I mean, he's still kicking goals and getting clearances. I
can't believe his longevity at the moment.
Oh,
he's doing everything. Like he is, and the cynic in me says that Jakey's negotiating a contract right now. But
and has been for 6 weeks, yes.
And has been for 6 weeks. Funny that. But if that's the case, mate, you're on a 10-week contract, mate.
Well, the problem for him is you've just told every fan of what you can do. So we're not letting that down.
No, sorry, Jake. We need that every single week, mate.
It's. That's how good you are. Then bring it because you're going to be a huge factor for success for us in big moments in finals.
Hugely, especially in finals when you need someone to step up. I mean, we're not just going to go right. I step back and just let Jakey do it. But I tell you what, it's going to make a hell of a lot of opposing coaches worry that in the last minutes, if we need a goal, you'd better chuck 2 people on Jake Stringer because you're going to need to. But the other thing with Jake is that his longevity at the moment, meaning Jakey's had some injuries. He's been in for a few weeks and then he's been out for like 1 or 2. But mate, he's strung 7 games, 8 games in a row now.
I think so, about 8 or 9, yeah.
Yeah, 8 or 9 when he's getting possessions, he's kicking goals, 17, 4 goals, 1, 70% efficiency.
And there's no secret we've won 6 of the last 9 either.
Because he's been in there.
Yeah. He's a massive player for us. He really is.
He's very good. Like the boy is very good. And I said to Scotty last night, I said, just pay him. Seriously, pay him. And the Dons are sitting there right now going, yeah, but if we give him his 6 years like he wants or 5 years or whatever he wants, he might tail off a little bit because he knows he's got a guaranteed contract and might tail off a little bit towards sort of year 5 or year 6. And we might not get the Super Jakey that we've just been getting. But frankly, I don't care. Under no circumstances should that guy be let go because he is one of very few players.
It's impossible to let him go now. Like I mean, he's winning you games.
One of very few footballers that can win a game for you off his own right boot, and they're like hen's teeth. And I know he left the Dogs reasonably controversially, but those kind of pickups, thank you, Adrian Dodoro, those kind of pickups for a player like that is just worth its weight in gold.
Yep.
What do you reckon? We come back from a break, and there's a player I want to ask you about who I don't think we've been particularly fond of late, that we might need to slightly change our opinion.
Intriguing.
Welcome back to the Lunchtime Catch-Up podcast. Now then, Scotty, there's a player that we've played over the last couple of weeks that, if we're 100% honest, I don't know that we've been his biggest fan in the games that he's played to date. But how have you seen the Cutler Kitty going over the last few weeks that he's been playing?
If I'm being honest, and everyone knows that I am not a big fan, but I've got hand on heart. I always say, I'll be honest and upfront. He's actually played well for 2 weeks. He's actually done pretty well. He's running the lines really well for us. He's never going to be a contested beast, but we really needed, with the Langford injury, someone to run on the wing, run down the line. And I know he's playing a little bit half back as well, but I actually think he's been quite solid. All credit to him, and when I say, I've really struggled with him, I think his performances have justified my concerns, but I'm always open to be surprised and for a guy to turn his career around. I love guys that turn their career around, like Peter Wright, we've been talking about.
Yeah.
And Tommy Cutler the last 2 weeks, he's definitely added something to the side and to help us win, and all credit to him.
He has assets. Like you said, we haven't been a massive fan of Tommy because he's afraid of a decent wind blowing across the ground, let alone a contest. But I just think he's utilized his skills in the game to best suit himself. I don't know that he's been in many massively contested ball situations. He's been that outside player. He's been the player to in the link-up situation where someone's handballed it to him, and he's been able to use those decent legs of his. He's quick. He's a big, tall.
He gobbles up 30 meters very quickly.
Absolutely.
And defenses have to react to that. And he's got a 60-meter kick, so he can have a 90-meter play in 5 seconds. So,
massive fan of the way he's going about it, and maybe, I don't know. It'd be interesting to talk to, maybe say Daniel G in Syracuse What about that? That'll be interesting to talk to. Anyway, we might have an announcement about that later. But it might be interesting to talk to the club or something like that about how they best try and use Tommy Cutler, because the man has assets. He's tall. He's got a massive boot. He can, like you said, chew up those 30 to 50 meters nice and quick. And we haven't been his massive fan, but again, more than happy to have you in there, Tommy. If you're pulling out, where are we? 19 possessions. Decent amount of marks, handball, 78% efficiency. Not bad, Tommy. Ticking along nicely.
Yeah. He had 2 tackles too, which is nice. I mean, I thought he was really good the week before, and I thought he was solid this game. So, it's going to take that. Like we spoke last week, and I'm not sure we actually did this, but when we said, with Langford down, we need all those bottom 6 to 8 plays to really, and let's mention another guy, Braden Ham, along with Cutler, who obviously was a late call-in because of the Jones situation. And again, he's kicked a really important goal, had 15 to 16 touches, contributed to the game, helped us win the game. Yeah. And that's what you really needed. I mean, it was funny. There was a lot of unsung heroes. It was like if you kind of said our top 4 players were really good, and our bottom 5 players, oddly, were quite good. I mean, Guelphy and Ham and Cutler, they were actually the ones who gave us a lot of drive and really wanted to perform. So when we needed it.
And it's interesting you say that, because I mean, the Guelphys, the Cutlers, and the Hams and those guys, they didn't have best on ground performances, but they really contributed to the club. And I guess you look at the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 footballers that I'm about to read out that have possession counts of between 9 and 5 in Laverde, Perkins, Waterman, Draper, Smith, and Tippenwoody. Very down on their normal outputs, very down. So it was good to see the second tier players, the guys that aren't at the tippity tip top of our list,
in and out of the side.
Yeah, in and out of the side, actually stepping up and doing something. Because I mean, Laverde was great in defense when the ball was down there doing the one-on-one thing and stuff, but geez, we were very porous on the way back on the two-way defense thing. And when you've got Laverde with 9, Perkins with 9, Waterman with 9, Draper with 8, Smith with 6, and Waller with 5. That's a lot of players well and truly down on output. And that's one of the main reasons why we were still fighting it out in the second half of the last quarter.
Yeah, and look, even lastly to that, you can add a 4th person, I reckon, to the in and out squad, and Sam Durham for his first game.
Yes.
I mean, I know he had a bad kick for goal, and that will never happen again. He's a very, very good kick. Obviously first game nerves, fine. But I thought outside of that, he looked really balanced. He kind of felt like he had a real presence in the game, and he had a critical play. I mean, it was 8 points the difference. North were coming. North having a shot 25 out in front. It was going to go through for sure. Yep. And Durham comes in from the side and smothers it, and we rebound and score. That gets you games, man. The coach sees that and says, head over the ball, smother, that's a tough 1%er. Kid, I hope on the back of that he gets a game again.
Oh, he did not look out of place, did he?
No, not on the wing. He had a bit of Kieran Spawn about him on the outer wing with that hairdo, but
Kieran Spawn.
He didn't look out of place for me. He was kind of that that graceful moving wing player.
He does have a touch of the smooth across the ground, doesn't he?
And he's a good mark overhead too. I mean, he's so young that, I think another 4 or 5 kilos onto this frame, and he's going to be a very good player. And
he is, like you say, he's only 20 or 19 or something.
I think he's like only 20 years old.
Yeah.
Man. Again, we've found another player.
Thank you to
the Big Red Fire Engine. Is that what you're saying?
the Big Red Fire Engine and his team of champions in the recruiting division of Essendon, Rob Forster Knight, and the lady that works in there whose name escapes me. Mate, just plucks another one. Just grabs the half decent another one. People will give it no credit whatsoever that he's probably been watching that kid for 10 weeks and just going to go, I'm going to snavel this bloke, and no one else knows about it except the Big Red Fire Engine choo-choos his way down to Richmond, pulls up at Burnley Station, says, we'll have you, Mr. Durham. Thanks for coming. And you can just be a decent performer on our list. Just another day at the job for the Fire Engine.
I went to check his age, right? And I don't know who people know Footy Wire. Is you go to advanced stats. They've put in the wrong date. So they've got him born July 9th, 2020. And because the calculation is done automatically when they've entered that date, I've looked down and it says his age 1 year, no month.
That is a very developed kid.
Yes, it's a big baby.
Mate, that's a big baby right there.
No,
He's got a decent right boot for a 1-year-old.
Yeah, so you add him, Durham, Guelphy, and Ham and Cutler. I mean, we've had just the guys who've been VFL in some ways do a big game for us and get us out of a hole as well, as much as the leaders have. So, yeah, Truck would be, so happy to see that. So
I think, and you're right. I mean, you can look at this game as a bit of a negative, and that we didn't perform very well for the vast majority of the game. But I reckon my little personal reckon is that Truck and the team will be looking at that going, all things being equal, dragging them away again, chucking them in a hotel room. Look, I reckon some of the boys enjoyed potentially the beach at Surface a little more than they should have. Maybe their minds were still on Surface Paradise sort of beach when they turned up to the game. But all things being equal, the ultimate goal is to beat a side like North. Get in, get out, beat them, go home.
Yeah.
Right. And ultimately that's what they did, because 6 weeks from now, no one's going to remember the game. All you're going to see is a W. And I bet your Truck in the post-game review with all the players would have said, all right, boys, you can't do that again. You can't, you can maybe do it against North because they're a bit POO at the moment, but you can't do it. However, damn good effort. It's why we have veterans at the club. It's why we don't trade away players that have played bloody 200 games, because they do stuff like that. They step up when required and they can help you win a game. And
did you know what? They actually moved the whole team. Is now got a new hub in Noosa.
So they've moved them again.
They moved to Noosa now. I think at the club's request. I think I got the funny feeling that they didn't want to just be in a high-rise hotel kind of situation. That they
want to be able to get out into the grounds or something like that.
Yeah.
Which you completely understand. Like I remember people were complaining that the AFL footballers had the ability to go out in Surface and stuff. Why is Harry Jones out in Surface, or why are they out? Guys, you got to understand, like you can't just take players from their home and what they're used to in Melbourne and just plonk them in a hotel room and leave them there. Like, you cannot leave the room and then expect them to come out mentally well to be able to play a game of AFL football at a high level. You've got to give these athletes, these little stallions, people that are built and literally trained for high performance. You can't keep them cooped up. Like me, you can. My huge fat ass, you can keep me cooped up, and I'll thank it very much. However, with a young kid like Durham who wants to play AFL footy and stuff, you got to have him to allow him to be out and about. So it's good to hear that they'll be able to have a wander around in Noosa.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Noosa's not that far away, really, from Gold Coast.
No, it's not.
It's like half an hour's drive, if I remember.
I think it might be, unfortunately, a concession by Xavier, that we're staying up there, though.
That's what I kind of read between the lines. And look, what do you think of that? Because it's funny because on Twitter today, there was a lot of frustration that we are the only Melbourne club that's been forced to not play in Melbourne, and we've got obviously 3 games meant to be coming up in Marvel, 2 of them being home games. It doesn't seem right because of the schedule we have. I understand the GWS and Sydney situation and them being away, but it just doesn't feel right with the draw we've had.
Can I raise something that might be a factor? Let me know what you think. Would there be any for the justification to take us up there, the only Melbourne club up there, would there be any contributing factor that as a club, we're very professional and we can get our players on a bus and on a plane, and we've got the support staff to be able to support them, and we do travel very well as a club. Now, I assume every club has the administration and the organisation and project management skills to be able to get players where they need to be to meet their professional obligations in the AFL, right? I assume every club would have that. But I wonder if Essendon, out of the AFL clubs, does it particularly well. And the other thing too is that, and you might be able to help me with this, is that do we pay for those hotel rooms or does the AFL pay for it?
I think the AFL does when it's a forced hub. I think the situation is this, that Sydney had their lockdown 3 or so weeks ago. So GWS and Sydney had to relocate to Melbourne. And they've had a hub for 2 to 3 weeks now. And I think they've had issues with family members getting down to Melbourne. And I think they're going to Queensland that may get relief in that situation because the 2 borders are a little bit separate. I'm only just guessing, but I reckon there's just a tendency they get more relief. So they're going to park GWS and Sydney there. But the problem is our next 2 opponents are those 2 opponents. It's the 2 Sydney teams, and we just got stuck with that scenario. Now, Essendon may argue, well, hang a sec, everyone flies in and out all the time. Like, I don't care if we're parked here. Why can't we fly down Saturday afternoon, play the game, fly back? You know, and that's
because they're probably going to say it's a bloody hotspot down in Melbourne and the virus, and we're
current border restrictions now that you're in Queensland, and stuff. So we're stuck. But we're terribly unlucky. It's just crazy that we finally had this section of the calendar, and we're in the 8. To drive,
despite all of this travel, we're in the 8.
Yeah, but even so, to drive home a flux of Marvel games that are just about to happen and not play them there.
A flux.
Influx.
Influx. Oof, I like it. That was excellent. Well done. Yep.
To have that just at our doorstep and honestly, like I was thinking today, GWS and Sydney are finals. Like we actually have to, I was going to talk about this maybe on a later show, but this is a finals coming up. Like the finals start now because these are the teams, especially GWS, these are the team that wants your spot. You've got to beat the team that wants your spot. So this week's a final. So that's where I think it's a little bit frustrating that we can't play at Marvel, a ground we're very much used to. But
we've earned a period there.
Yeah, and look, it's very hard. I don't know whether to go into this because I don't know the answer myself, but Xavier just got hammered today on social media because he did a SEN call this morning, and I'm saying this because I don't really know what I think, and it did kind of feel like he was kind of saying no, we'd rather play my Marvel, but he had that sense of the white flag, right? Just saying, but AFL saying you got to do it, So
you can't fight that.
What are we going to do? And the argument was from fans that if this was Eddie, you'd be screaming through the radio, you'd be causing, and we just accepted it just like that. It's very hard because I kind of get both arguments, and I think fans sometimes want us to see a little bit raged and like, no, we're upset. But there's a fine balance to that, to not lose focus also of a game coming up that's a final. So there's a fine balance to not have a victim mentality and going into a game like, oh, we're going to lose now because we didn't get to play. You want to actually get the guys focused ASAP and say, wherever we play, we're going to put up a contest. We can win.
And that's the thing.
So it's a very tricky, and people might be through the microphone wanting to slap me right now, but it is complex because you also have to factor in the players' mindset, because you want them focused ASAP of where they're going to play, because AFL is going to set the agenda, and whether people like it or not, they're going to say you're playing there, and you need to get your team not in a victim mentality like you're now that this has happened, you're going to lose. You actually have to turn it around and say, hey, we just won North Melbourne. We know this ground now. We can win this again. Let's go out and win it. And that has to be internally your narrative.
Perfectly well said. I guess the coaches have got to know which size ground they're playing on, which the wind and all that sort of stuff. They need to know. Look, don't be under any misunderstandings. I know people will go, Eddie would have done this and Eddie would have done that. There's a lot of things that Eddie Maguire did, and he's no longer president of Collingwood, right? So don't use Eddie Maguire as too much of a talisman of what Xavier should be doing, because don't get me started. But Eddie, don't get me wrong, Eddie could have jumped up and down and used the footy show and footy classifieds to argue and jump and would have been loud and everybody would have heard him. But if the AFL wanted us to play up there, since when in the recorded history of yours or my life has the AFL changed their mind because a club's complained? The AFL doesn't change their mind for anybody ever. They do exactly as they see fit, and everybody falls into line. Now, if it was Collingwood playing up there, Eddie and anybody else, they could dig up Gordon Coventry and the AFL would say no, right? So I know everybody wants us to be like loud and get up in their face and that sort of stuff. That's not Xavier Campbell. It's not his MO. It's not how he operates. And I tell you what, mate, he's doing pretty bloody well as a CEO at Essendon at the moment in totally unprecedented in circumstances. And you're right, Scotty. Once he'd finished going, well, it's no use banging my head against the AFL because they ain't going to change their mind. Right. So I could go on every television show, every footy show, every radio show and just yell and bitch and scream at the AFL. And all it would do would annoy the AFL because they ain't changing their mind. Yeah. So what he's done is, like you just said, he's gone, fine. It's totally unprecedented circumstances. You want us to play on the Goldie? We'll play on the Goldie. He could walk into truck and say, Goldie. It's Goldie for the next 2-3 weeks. Get the boys up for it. But then the boys know where they're playing. The boys know about that swirly pocket in the corner that Peter Wright tells them about. Yes. They know they're playing outdoors. They know they're doing all this sort of stuff. And like you said, they can get their head in a good place. They're up there as best they can. Get their head in as good a place as possible. Know they're playing in the GC for this period of time and have some certainty.
Do you know one thing I would do? This is personally me if I'm Xavier, and I'm probably doing it anyway. I would say, hey, fine, we're the sacrificial lamb. We're the one Melbourne team. We had to do it in Perth. We're now doing it at Gold Coast. I tell you what, guys, AFL, you really do want to consider this in the 2022 draw because we ain't copping that interstate barrage again. And I honestly would. I would say, fine, we can't dictate what happens now, but you can dictate a fair cop of the Essendon Football Club for next year because we ain't playing 6 interstates. It's Collingwood's turn. It's Richmond's turn.
Yep.
We're doing 4 or 5, and we're playing at Marvel. We're playing at the G, and we actually want to draw that I think is a little bit of return because we've been the club that's helped the AFL out a lot by being up in Queensland, the sole Melbourne club, and at the time I would say sorry, we deserve something next year, no doubt, and our members do, and that's where you have to fight for members. And so no, we need games where members can turn up, we need extra games. Sorry,
Yep.
that's the reality.
I hope you're right. I hope he does that next year, because that's a fight that he can have next year. But I just think, yeah, look, it'd be great to have him at Marvel, and we bloody well deserved it, because we earned it. We travelled an inordinately large amount of for this season, and Essendon just seems to be the AFL's whipping boy when problems go wrong. But now I'd be using it as a stick now for the boys. I'll be out there going, mate, they don't think we can do it. They don't think they're just playing with us at the AFL. Let's just bloody go out of the GC and pump these GWS knobs by 5 to 6 goals, show them that we can play anywhere. And then when Chairman Dan sorts himself out, we'll go home. But I'd use it to fire us up, where we don't, like you said, that victim mentality. I don't want anybody to say anything of the sort. We know where we're playing AFL football now. You've got a 4-star hotel to come back to at night. Sure, your kids and your missus aren't there, but now we know we've got the certainty. We're professionals. Let's put our head down and our rear end up and play the GC as best we can.
Yeah, exactly. So that's it for us. Huge game obviously coming up with GWS.
GWS, it's confirmed GC obviously, but it's now Sunday.